You who feel too much, who perceive what no one else sees, who carry a light that is not always understood. This message is for you. It is no coincidence you are here. There is something in you that has already realized the world goes beyond what the eyes can see. And precisely because of this, you may have been the target of invisible connections. Some pains you thought you had overcome still echo within you, and these echoes are not just in memories. They open doors to something greater, influences that do not belong to your essence. Many who are called chosen live under the weight of these energies without knowing it. They are subtle, silent, but deep ties that drain, paralyze, and confuse. These connections are what we call Archontic attachments. They do not arise with fanfare. They are born slowly, through small unhealed wounds, weakening relationships, emotional repetitions that seem normal. Over time, you begin to doubt yourself, and it is in that doubt that these presences grow. But the truth is that you can free yourself, and everything begins with awareness. This content was made to help you identify these signs. In the next steps, we will talk about how Archontic attachment enters your life, how it disguises itself, where it hides, and most importantly, how you can break this cycle. You will realize you are not alone, and that everything you need is already within you. My name is George, and if this topic resonates in your heart, I invite you to follow the channel. Here, we speak with truth, with soul, and with a focus on those who carry something different within themselves. If you recognize yourself in this is your space. Welcome. Let's walk this path together. 1. What's draining your energy? The invisible attachment. Have you ever had the feeling that something is draining your life force, even on days when everything seems normal? It may sound strange, but there is a hidden influence that deeply affects people like you, who have greater spiritual sensitivity. This influence doesn't appear in a frightening or flashy way. It is subtle, silent, and highly strategic. We're talking about what many call Archontic attachment, a parasitic energetic bond that infiltrates precisely in the cracks of our soul. The chosen ones are easy targets for this kind of interference because they carry a light that sets them apart. Where there is light, there is attention, and unfortunately, not all attention is positive. Some bonds that seemed innocent at first become deep energetic traps. Many of these connections don't appear by chance. They arise through emotional wounds, old traumas, words that hurt, moments when you had to hide your pain just to keep the peace. These experiences leave internal scars, and it is in these wounds that these entities anchor themselves. The problem is that, over time, we stop noticing the origin of the discomfort. We start believing that the critical voice inside our head is our own, that we really are too much, not enough, or insufficient. What began as an external influence starts to seem like our own thought, but it's not. It's an echo that was born from suffering and took shape through repetition, an echo that turns into constant noise inside the mind, and little by little starts to drive your decisions, your emotions, your actions. These spiritual bonds don't show up as monsters. They develop gradually, through small openings, cycles of abusive relationships, repressed anger, buried resentments, words never spoken. Each time you ignore an emotional wound, it becomes an open door. And each open door is a route of entry for influences that want to feed on your light. It's no coincidence when you find yourself going back to people who hurt you. Each return reinforces a negative spiritual bond. With every new disappointment, it's as if another invisible thread connects to you. And if these ties are not broken, they keep multiplying, draining your energy, disrupting your mental clarity, making you doubt yourself. Another important point is the excess of spiritual seeking without grounding. When you keep jumping from technique to technique, from doctrine to doctrine, searching for answers outside without applying what you've already learned. A gap is created between who you are and who you think you should be. That gap becomes vulnerable to external voices. The obsession with becoming an ideal version of yourself can open space for influences that feed on your insecurity. And here is one of the biggest triggers of all: the desire for perfection. When spirituality becomes a performance, it loses its power. You start acting not based on your truth, but on what others expect from you. That disconnects you from your essence. And in that disconnection, you become weakened. You lose your identity. And that weakening is exactly what these energies need to thrive. If you've made it this far, it's because part of you feels that something is out of place. Something that isn't yours. And you're right. Much of what weighs on your shoulders may have been planted by experiences that do not define you. By people who didn't know how to value you. By moments when you were silenced. And you carry all of that as if it were yours. But it's not. These influences lodge in your thoughts, but there are clear signs that help you identify them. 2. Clear signs that you are being influenced by an archontic attachment. Now that you understand that there is an external energy silently acting upon you, it's time to identify the signs that show this attachment is already influencing your life. And the most surprising part? These signs don't seem mystical. They seem normal, common, but the frequency and intensity of them is what reveals their presence. Let's start with one of the most common: extreme and sudden self-criticism. You wake up on a seemingly normal day, but a voice inside you starts pointing out flaws you had never noticed before. It criticizes your appearance, your way of speaking, your decisions. And the most confusing part is that even though nothing bad has happened, this voice won't stop. It keeps trying to diminish you. This goes beyond normal insecurity. It's a continuous attack on your self-esteem. The problem is that, over time, you start to believe that this voice is yours. But it's not. It comes from a place of unresolved pain. A place that was opened by situations from the past. And it is in that space that the influence settles and feeds. Constant reliving of painful situations. You're trying to move on, but something keeps pulling you back. Old conversations come back to your mind. Arguments, criticism, humiliation. You relive them mentally as if they happened yesterday. And the worst part, you don't want to remember, but you can't avoid it. This is a strong indication that there is emotional energy trapped in you, coming from past interactions. These memories were imprinted with the pain of the moment and became spiritual anchors. When you absorb the energy of someone who hurt you, that mark can remain alive in you. Even if the person has been gone for a long time, the impact still feeds off your memory. And as long as this cycle continues, the attachment grows stronger. Difficulty breaking free from toxic relationships. Another important sign: the persistence in staying connected to people who drain your energy. This isn't about hate, but about emotional dependence disguised as connection. You try to walk away, but something always pulls you back. It's as if there were an invisible glue between you. And this glue, in fact, is the energetic residue left by unbalanced dynamics. Relationships like these, whether romantic, familial, or friendships, leave openings through which these attachments feed. And often, the connection remains alive out of guilt, fear, or a distorted idea of loyalty. Mental exhaustion, even after resting. You sleep well but wake up exhausted. You sit down to do something simple, but your mind is already overwhelmed. You try to concentrate, but your thoughts are scattered, as if there's a constant background noise in your mind. This may be caused by the energetic overload generated by these bonds. They not only drain your vital energy, but also occupy mental space that should be available for creativity, organization, and rest. It's like trying to work in a room filled with low background noise. Nothing too loud, but enough to distract you. Irrational fear of being authentic. You know who you are, what you like, what you want to say. But something stops you from expressing it. As if the moment you show your true self, you'd lose people's love or the little support you still have. This fear of being yourself may have been born from an old trauma, from a time when showing your truth resulted in rejection or punishment. The Archontic attachment settles precisely there, in the silent decision of better to stay quiet to be accepted. But this seemingly safe choice disconnects you from your power. All these signs have one thing in common. They make you believe you are less than you really are. And that's exactly what the attachment wants. For you to feel small, weak, confused. Because the more you doubt yourself, the more space it has to grow. But now that you recognize the signs, you can start to act. Liberation begins with awareness. In the next part, we'll talk about how these attachments form, what allows them to enter, and what you can do, in a simple and practical way, to prevent them from gaining strength. 3. How the Archontic attachment forms and gains strength. Now that you already recognize the signs that you're being influenced by an energy that isn't yours, you might be wondering, but how did this all start? How did this attachment manage to enter my life? The answer, as complex as it may seem, begins with something very simple. In the experiences you've lived but never healed. These are moments marked by emotional pain that you swallowed in silence. Those situations where, out of survival or love, you chose to silence your own pain so as not to cause discomfort to others. In each of these moments, a space was created. This doesn't happen because you are weak or unprepared. On the contrary, most people who carry this kind of spiritual connection are, in fact, extremely sensitive. They are people who feel the world intensely, who absorb deeply what happens around them. And precisely because of this, they often choose to remain silent to protect others, trying to avoid even more pain, even if it costs them their own peace. But in that silence, something remains open. When pain is repressed, it doesn't disappear. It settles, and over time, it becomes a kind of internal crack, an emotional fracture. And it is through these cracks that spiritual attachments, like archons, find a way in. They don't arrive as something threatening or aggressive. Quite the opposite. They arrive disguised, taking a form that feels familiar. An inner voice that presents itself as realism, prudence, or even healthy self-criticism, but that deep down repeats painful messages. You really are not enough. You'll never be loved the way you are. Accept the little, because it's better than nothing. And so, without realizing it, you start repeating these ideas as if they were your own. But they're not. They were planted in moments of vulnerability and gained strength as you accepted them as part of your identity. The Archontic attachment is born exactly at this point, when a lie is repeated so many times that it seems true. Another fundamental point is to observe the repetition of patterns in your life. Have you noticed how certain situations, especially in relationships, seem to repeat like a cycle? As if the same type of person, critical, cold, controlling, or emotionally unavailable, keeps appearing with different faces in different contexts, but provoking very similar feelings. This is not a coincidence. This pattern forms because there's an unresolved wound attracting similar experiences. What should have been resolved back then presents itself again in new forms, seeking attention and healing. It's as if you've unconsciously learned that toxic relationships are normal, that this is love, even though what you're receiving is attachment, control, or emotional scarcity. As long as this cycle isn't broken, it becomes fertile ground for the Archontic attachment. Because it feeds exactly on doubt, on the feeling of unworthiness, on the fear of being alone. It's this soil of insecurity that keeps it alive. And the more you repeat the same patterns, the stronger it gets. These mechanisms are not easy to perceive. They are subtle, camouflaged, repetitive. But the good news is that now you are seeing them, and that already changes everything. Because when you see, even if you don't yet know exactly what to do, you're already beginning to recover parts of yourself that were asleep or unconsciously surrendered. Healing doesn't begin when everything makes sense. It begins at the exact moment you decide to stop carrying what doesn't belong to you. And this quiet and firm decision is already the first step for the attachment to begin to dissolve. 4. How to break the Archontic attachment. The path of inner freedom. With the clearest signs identified and the origins of these spiritual ties now better understood, we reach the most transformative moment of this journey. Consciously breaking these subtle and silent connections that drain your energy. The breaking of these bonds doesn't happen by chance, nor through miraculous rituals. True liberation is not something magical or immediate. It doesn't depend on ready-made formulas, sacred words, or external methods. On the contrary, it comes from something much simpler, and at the same time, much more powerful. The way you choose to live every day. Breaking the Archontic attachment means living in coherence with your inner truth, even in the face of pressure, the expectations of others, and the old memories that still echo. This coherence is the fertile soil where freedom is born. But to build it, you must start with an essential point, the conscious observation of the thoughts that arise within you. Many of the ideas that make us feel small, incapable, or inadequate were absorbed from painful experiences. They came from people who, at some point in our history, hurt us, criticized us, diminished us, or didn't know how to hold space for us. These external voices, when repeated often, end up becoming internal. And that's how a thought that wasn't yours begins to be mistaken for your own identity. Liberation begins right there, in the recognition that not every thought that inhabits your mind is legitimate. Not everything you feel or believe about yourself is true. By identifying the origin of these mental and emotional patterns, something inside you begins to unravel. The attachment loses its power because the illusion loses its consistency. Part of the healing process also involves observing the relationships around you. Many of the connections we maintain have become based on imbalance. They are not necessarily overtly abusive relationships. Sometimes they are subtle bonds, but still reinforce your insecurities. People who don't respect your boundaries, who belittle your dreams, who prefer to see you in a diminished, muted version. These relationships are sustained when you adapt to the discomfort of others, when you stay silent to keep harmony, when you shrink yourself to avoid rejection, but the price is too high. Spiritual attachment strengthens in environments where you are forced not to be yourself. It's essential to understand that identifying these patterns is not about blaming anyone. It's about looking at your own story with compassion and understanding that there are parts of you ready to stop living through pain. The spiritual liberation of the chosen doesn't come from perfection or absolute purity. It comes from commitment to truth. It comes from returning to your essence. It's not about being more elevated than others, but about remembering who you've always been, before the world tried to convince you otherwise. And when you live with integrity and compassion for yourself, you build such a solid internal territory that the attachment no longer finds shelter to exist. 5. The end of the attachment. When you return to who you've always been, the deepest moment of this journey is the reunion with your essence, with the part of you that has always been present. even if silenced. That part that existed before the pain, before the doubts, before the voices that pulled you away from yourself. Now, with your eyes open, you begin to realize that the Archontic attachment didn't arise out of nowhere. It infiltrated the spaces left by unhealed wounds, ignored feelings, unspoken words. And now that you see these patterns, they lose their strength. For a long time, we were taught to believe that everything we think comes from us. But this is a mistake. Many of the thoughts we carry are just reflections of what other people projected onto us. Harsh words, criticism, expectations that weren't ours. Over time, these ideas repeated themselves so much that they became rooted, as if they were part of who we are. But the truth is, if a thought diminishes you, it doesn't come from your soul. Our essence doesn't blame itself for being what it is, doesn't feel ashamed for existing, doesn't try to hide. It simply is. When you realize that not every voice inside you is authentic, something shifts. The identification with negative thoughts dissolves. You begin to distinguish what was born from your light and what was placed there to disconnect you from it. And when that clarity begins to settle in, a final attempt of the attachment arises: emotional isolation. It tries to convince you that by transforming yourself, you'll be alone, that no one will understand your new phase, that growing spiritually means distancing yourself from others. This is an old trap, a primitive fear that tries to keep you tied to what no longer serves you. And now, with this awareness, you begin to walk lighter. The thoughts that used to hurt no longer have the same impact. You recognize when something isn't yours. You take a stand. You protect yourself. You no longer accept carrying inherited shames or molding yourself to fit into spaces that don't deserve you. The truth is that you don't need to fight these attachments anymore. You just need to stop feeding them. They were never strong on their own. They only seemed powerful because you believed in them. Now that belief has dissolved, and what remains is the truth. You are free. If this journey touched something inside you, know that this is just the beginning of a new path. You are not late, you are not broken, and you are definitely not alone. What's happening is that you are awakening to your true identity. And as scary as that may feel at first, it's also what will reconnect you to your highest purpose. You didn't come into this world to adapt to tight spaces. You came to transform, to remember, to heal. Every step you take from this point on, with truth and courage, will weaken the invisible structures that try to keep you in the dark. Now that you know, now that you see, your journey truly begins. And this time you are in command. Getting here was no coincidence. If you've read or listened to all of this, it's because you carry within you a perception that goes beyond the ordinary. You feel more, perceive more, and precisely because of that, you are also more sensitive to the forces that try to pull you away from your essence. But the fact that you are conscious now changes everything, because where there is awareness, there is the possibility of liberation. The Archontic attachment is not just a spiritual idea. It is an energetic reality that feeds on wounds, emotional repetitions, and the disconnection from who you truly are. It acts in silence, disguises itself as thought, hides in relationships, sustains itself through guilt. And for a long time, maybe you thought the problem was you. But now it's clear. Much of that weight was never yours. This awakening is more than a relief. It is a turning point. Because from the moment you begin to identify the signs, question the inner voices, and treat yourself with more truth, something inside you realigns. Your light, the one they tried to extinguish, begins to shine firmly again. And this light doesn't need to shout or prove anything. It simply exists. And that alone already unsettles everything that once fed on your doubt. The journey of liberation is not about becoming perfect, but about becoming whole. It's about giving back what isn't yours, reclaiming what was left behind, and committing to your deepest truth. It's about no longer adapting to what hurts and beginning to build a reality where you can fully exist, without fear, without masks, without compromises that cost you your peace. You have the right to live lightly. You have the right to say no, to walk away from what drains you, to remake the paths that once shaped you. You have the right to heal, even if no one apologizes. You have the right to be yourself, without carrying the weight of expectations, traumas, or judgments that do not belong to your spirit. So now that you know, how about turning this knowledge into practice? Remember, everything starts within. Taking care of your thoughts, honoring your emotions, keeping your inner promises. These are the small acts that, day after day, begin to break the invisible chains of attachment. And over time, what once seemed like part of you reveals itself to be what it always was. A passing interference that cannot withstand your authentic presence. If this message touched your heart, I invite you to leave in the comments a word or feeling that summed up this journey for you. It can be an insight, a liberation, or even a doubt that emerged. What matters is that you participate, because your voice here is also healing for others. And remember, you are a chosen one, and that will never be by chance.